Hey, what's up everyone? This is Orange doing yet another audio commentary. Please get the replay paused at the 45-second mark. This replay is also copyrighted in 2007. Alright, so now that that stuff is out of the way, this is a pretty sweet game that I found a couple days ago between Axelav and Kiwikaki. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, so I'm just going to call him Kiwi. But what I really like about this game is that Axelav uses a bunch of things that I use in my Undead versus Orc matchup that are, I don't know, they're pretty vital, and I think a lot of people should know about them. And also he uses a strategy that I've actually started using ever since I saw this, and it is very powerful. I was skeptical at first, but I tried it a couple times, and wow, it's good. But yeah, I like to vary up a couple of the details. I'll get into that later. But I really love this replay. It's hilarious at times. So I'm going to get this unpaused pretty quick here. My throat's a little sore, so you're going to hear me sipping some, I believe it's Pepsi this time. I'm not endorsed by anyone, but I don't know. I don't really compete in the race wars between Coke and Pepsi. It tastes fine. So let's get the replay unpaused from the 45-second mark under AG.Axelav's point of view. In 3, 2, 1, unpause. Alright, so he does pretty much the standard Undead build, which is Crypt, Altar, Zig. And it's all good from there. My one problem is that Axelav's base build is pretty open. And I don't know why, but a lot more Orc players don't really take advantage of this by going in and harassing various Acolytes to their death by just, running their Blade Master in and chasing the Acolyte around. I find it's kind of a pain in the ass. It makes you waste a whole bunch of coils early game that should be used on ghouls or offensively against grunts. And that's one thing to be wary of, is when to use your coils. Like, you want to save your ghouls, but you also want to make sure that you get grunt kills. So what a lot of people will do is just try and go for the massive ghoul surround on one grunt and then focus it down, which at that point you should be mainly focusing on using your coils on your ghouls. See, this is why playstyle comes in handy when you're picking your coils to use. If you have a smaller army and you just want to chase down units with Unholy Aura or just your Death Knight, you're probably going to end up using coil more offensively and using more of the conservative micro, which is where you send your ghouls all the way back to your base, and hopefully you either have a cold tower or, I guess later game you'll have your Necropolis upgraded. But at that point, all you have to do is hope that they don't use their Windwalker or their Wolves against you, and you should be okay to pull this off. So, funny part number 1 coming up soon when the Acolyte dies. Thought you should know. Also, Axelav goes normal hero. Very interesting. Very weird for him. But yeah, once again, when picking your coils, if you're chasing down grunts, you really don't want to use more than one coil per grunt. So you have to make sure that you are very conservative in that manner. And also, when you're chasing down grunts, you only want to use 1 or 2 against the grunts. You want to make sure that you don't use them like right after one another. This way you don't waste too many coils and you can use them on your units later on. Also, if you use all of your coils early game, which Axelav doesn't do because he could use another one, and he does use another one, but you want to make sure that you don't get caught in the fact that you don't have any mana whatsoever, especially when you're playing a little offensively. If you're doing a little bit of harassment, you want to make sure that you still have mana to be able to coil snipe a bunch of their creeps, or you want to make sure that they don't go after your Acolytes, which your coil is your only base defense. And when they do go after your Acolytes with the one Blade Master, really just try and focus them down, maybe buy a dust to get rid of them, but you only want to use 1 or 2 coils to save your Acolytes. After then, it kind of starts to become a waste because you won't be able to save any of their units, and they could just come in and pound on your Tomb of Relics, and you won't be able to do anything because you don't have any Acolytes, and then they'll be able to take out all your ghouls pretty quickly. It's just kind of hard to figure out when you're using your coils, but Axelav does a pretty good job of it. He doesn't abuse the coilness that he has. If you watch players such as Fav, they usually don't use many coils unless they absolutely have to. So you just want to be wary that don't use a coil just to like heal something for no reason when you're out of battle. use the Blight to heal up your stuff, or you can always use Cannibalize, which is another thing that a lot of people should get. It just allows you to creep so much more. You don't have to do as many coils, especially on maps such as Twisted Meadows. When you creep out the whole null camp and you're harassing with your Death Knight at the same time, it's always good to have Cannibalize. That way that, you'll always have one weak ghoul by the end of that creep camp anyways, so you can always just use that and have it not get focused on. This way you don't rely on your Death Knight to creep and heal at the same time. You can just focus on your harassment and save a lot more of your coils that way. So basically right now what's happening in the game is Kiwi's going after some ghouls by just chasing them down with a Blade Master. I don't think he has a Boots of Speed yet, but it's always a good idea to have one on your Blade Master, especially against Undead. It's almost good to have it on both of your heroes, but eventually your Tauren Chieftain will get Endurance Aura, and you'll be able to speed along that way. But for the time being, always get Boots of Speed on your Blade Master, and then pass it on to your Tauren Chieftain. This gives you a lot more of a mobility advantage, so that you won't really have to worry about them coil and novaing all of your units while you're running away, which is one thing that Undeads are very good at. Like, if they're down at any point of the game, they can always sit in their base, which will cold tower you, and then they can nova coil anything and level up their heroes that way. And they don't even have to rely on creeping. All they have to do is rely on the fact that they have enough mana to do this. So, sorry for my throat clearing. But it looks like Axelav's going Lich second hero, and what he does is actually fairly innovative. I hadn't done this before, but he is going to go Frost Armor first, which is probably one of my favorite spells to use against Orc, just because their entire army relies on the fact that they have melee damage. And you'll notice that Kiwi, later on in the game, does a very nice unit switch, but the problem with unit switching, and which is why it's so hard to counter, is the fact that you have to change your entire army composition, and it kind of becomes a pain that way. Now, usually with this strategy, I like to go with the Crypt Lord first. Crypt Lord has its advantages because you have the beetles, and the great thing about the beetles is that if you do just go with the regular Nova and Frost, or Dark Ritual, you can use that on your beetles, and you can gain mana that way. It's like the perfect mana trade. I mean, your beetles really don't have that much EXP. They come back pretty fast. Your Crypt Lord will have a lot of mana anyways because you can only have 5 beetles. And then what you do is you just